The Black Swan life is an uncommon one. It's for every man or woman who is too rare to fit into the status quo, even if they have tried. It's about love, life, faith, and money in a way that honors our uniqueness in a world of conformity. I firmly believe that when any area of our lives goes into crisis, we must examine the relationship we have with that thing, place, or person to restore the balance that fuels recovery and prosperity. My name is Chengi. I am the founder of the Black Swan Relationship Academy, dating and relationship expert, life coach, mother, sister, auntie to every single one of the Black Swans in the world that need me to be that for them. Here on the Black Swan Life podcast, I believe wholeheartedly that relationships are life and life is relationship. For dating and relationship advice, follow Black Swan Relationship Academy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. But for now, welcome Black Swan. Let's glide into today's lake and swim. Okay, so I have our delectable, amazing, beautiful coaches here today on today's podcast. We're going to be talking about the stuff that we need to really unlearn in order to be really great at relationships. I think the internet is full of things to do, not to do, but a lot of it we're just sort of layering, building a building on top of faulty foundations. And there's a particular scripture that I love that says that if the foundations of the heart be destroyed, what can the righteous do? So that indicates to me that it doesn't really matter what you're building, no matter how shiny the objects are. If you build a house of gold or marble, if the foundations are broken, then it's only going to fall apart anyway. And I think we're in a world, in the relationship world right now, where we're creating narratives that are fantastic, great self-love, self-help, great strategy. Even in the Relationship Academy, we give so many amazing scripts, we give so many amazing strategies, but we really are building them on faulty foundations. So this episode today is really about us looking at the foundations that we have built, that we're building on, really, and really accept that they're faulty, because a lot of them we have learned from broken people in broken relationships. But what our subconscious mind has really taken note of is the truth. So today we're going to be talking with the coaches, and we're just going to be exploring what we believe some of the things that we have to unlearn in order for us to really create healthy relationships. It's really great because I've got Coach Unique here, who's our head coach, and she is obviously well versed in relationships herself personally, and Coach Yvonne, who is married, and so we could probably get a take on some of this stuff at every level that we need to unlearn. So I'm just going to start with Coach Unique. Welcome, say hello, and let us know what you think we need to unlearn before we can start laying on great foundations.
Oh, hello, everybody. It is great to actually be on a podcast finally, and that is kind of taken off the ground. Mm-hmm. So as you know, we always have conversations off air, on air, around relationships. It's like our whole life is built around relationships. Yeah. And personally, on a personal level, it's like I've been experiencing this whole thing about, okay, we always say we are emotionally unavailable. So what do we do about it? And I'm finding that we actually have to learn how to not disassociate. Yes. To unlearn all of the yes, we are mostly emotionally unavailable. So then how do you become available? There's a whole skill of learning to feel, learning to touch again, learning to create safe spaces. So it's that whole thing where we need to unlearn and not make it okay for us to be emotionally unavailable.
So how do we unlearn being emotionally unavailable, do you think?
I think it's really in, I guess it's one of those things, again, that you can only really do when you're in a relationship. It's getting into the relationship, or you start to build safe spaces with the people around you. It's learning to touch again, learning to allow yourself to not always, but to be in your body, to know what your body feels. And I think we kind of talk about that as well whenever we did the compassion inquiry during some of our training, is like you need to learn to learn what your body actually feels, because I think we disassociate most of the time, and we have a head knowledge of how a relationship works, a head knowledge of how a relationship should get to, but it's the in between. Like, what do you need to unlearn? We need to unlearn the patterns that we picked up growing up. We need to learn that it's not always daddy's not going to be around just because he's at home. It doesn't mean that he's going to be distant. And it's then, how do you create those safe spaces with you and your partner to then be able to talk about how you want somebody else to be emotionally available for you? So it's in conversation, I guess.
Yeah. I think, issues of disassociation obviously come from, the trauma that you experienced, and it's more like an adaptation. It was a coping mechanism. It's how you survived, because disassociation is a safety mechanism that, often if you're going through extreme trauma, maybe in the middle of an accident, or you're being violated in one way, shape, or form, the way your brain copes with that, it is protecting you by disassociating. So it's almost like it's not happening to you, but it's happening. And that's just a survival protocol. And if we don't address it and really sort of focus on addressing some of our behaviors, because we all do it at some point. We're in a room and we disappear in our heads. When the emotion of the situation gets, for me, my thing is when I'm watching a movie and it's getting too emotional or too hectic, I will just go on my phone. And that's just me not wanting to be present to that moment. And while some things are harmless, I think in relationships, it's, kind of coming with that sort of understanding that actually I have learned to disassociate and to, and maybe because we saw our parents do it. We learned to do it because of our own trauma. It was the culture of our family. We watched mom go to the kitchen and cook instead of dealing with how she felt, or get busy with something. Or we saw my dad would, go for a long walk. He would shut down and go for a walk because that was his way of, creating space for himself. And, when you start to look at your own history, you'll find that you probably had a parent that did it a lot, that would emotionally disconnect from the family. And so you learned that as a coping mechanism. So for sure, it's something that we definitely need to unlearn. And sadly, it's not an easy unlearn. It's not, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop disassociating. This is really where you need somebody to help you walk through your wounds and your narratives and your stories, so that you can be aware that you're doing it. Because I think most of us are not even aware that we're doing it.
Yeah.
And start those little steps towards it. But I think we do that a lot in relationships, and we don't even realize that we're doing it. And then we kind of will put strategy on top of our disassociation, right? On top of, this wound. And then we wonder why it's not working. So that's a really good one.
I think we're actually almost protected, don't we?
Yes, it's coping, it's survival. We do it to survive. It's not even because we're being mean or we want to withdraw from our loved ones or our partner. It's just survival, isn't it? And anything that means we're going to survive as humans, we're going to hold on to it for dear life until we find another safe space. But that's a deep one, Coach Unique. I think we might actually have to have a whole episode on
this.
Yes,
I agree with what you've said.
Coach Yvonne, you're married, have been long enough to give us this advice. And of course, you've got a lot of clients that you help. What are the things that you think as women we need to unlearn, or maybe men need to unlearn too, because this podcast is for men and women? So what are the things that do you think one of the things that we need to unlearn?
One of the things that I think we need to unlearn, especially as married women or women who've been in long-term relationships, is how to unlearn mothering our husbands. Because, we saw our mother's mother, and we've taken on the mothering, because maybe, they've also got children. And so when you are taking care of your husband, you want to make sure that everything is done for him. He finishes eating, you take the plate to the sink, you are, his clothes are ironed, everything is put away, everything is done. So the only thing that he basically has to do is just walk into the room, sit down, and then everything is done for him.
Yeah.
He didn't marry us for us to mother him. He married us whilst we take care of them, we don't need to do everything for them, clean their shoes, do their shoelaces, whatever it is that we do for our children, we have to unlearn not to want to do it for our husbands.
Absolutely. Now, somebody's listening is going to be like, what's wrong with that? Because I saw a viral post on Instagram, and this girl, I don't know if you saw it, Coach Unique, and I forget the names. I must apologize. I don't really pay attention to who's saying what. I should. But she was saying that a submissive woman does everything for her man, like everything for her man. And that kind of went viral, and everybody was talking about it because I think she's some kind of celebrity, and she was talking about exactly what you're talking about, cook, clean, iron, da, 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 da. And she was really describing that kind of, again, what our mothers taught us. And when I read through the comments, the men were like, where is she? Where am I going to find a wife like this? Clearly, the woman that you were describing is a lot of men's fantasy. They want that sort of man. So one might argue, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with mothering your man, do you think?
What's wrong with mothering your man is, at the end of the day, women want masculine men. They want men to be men. Yes. How is he going to be the man that we desire to take control, to take care of us, to basically go out and bring the bacon home?
Yeah.
How is he going to do that when we're doing everything for him? Why would he need to get up and go go to work, for instance, to secure the home, to make sure that the children are brought up properly? You spoke earlier where you said the scripture that came to mind was about the foundation of the home. And it's the same thing here. If the foundation of the home is uneven, then there's going to be problems. And if the wife is taken care of and doing everything for the husband, some women actually go out and work, and he's sitting at home, feet up, doing nothing. That's disproportionate.
Yes, I understand. I think, your perspective is really good, because I think our generation and beyond, were raised in a very traditional way where we're very domesticated. And I know that a lot of young men really wish those women would come back. I think in many ways we're dream girls, because I am the iron your husband's shirt, put them away, make sure the house is clean, make sure dinner's on the table kind of girl, because that's what I grew up seeing. And I think if your full-time job is to work in the home, then you're a really great employee. And, if you get paid well for doing that, I've always said, look, if you pay me what I earn right now and more, I will iron your clothes and do whatever, so he's going to have to be a very wealthy guy. But like you said, if you're a working woman, this is going to feel like a toll. And I do agree with you in terms of, we need to really stop mothering, because, I think a lot of the skills of the things were taught by our mothers were to be great wives, but in many ways it was to really become their mother. And what happens is, when you do every single thing for your man, you become his mother in his head, and he loses sexual attraction to you. And this is a lot of the problems that housewives have an issue with, because once you mother, which is again masculine energy, organize his life, organize everything, he loses sexual attraction for you. You become like mom, whatever. If he's got mother wounds, then you're screwed, because he's going to punish you for everything mama did. So I think really it's about that balance of not being in masculine, being in service, because the feminine does serve. But I think I would say the balance there, and I don't know if you've got, anything else you want to contribute in terms of creating balance, because obviously you are married and already in that situation. But certainly from my perspective, and having been a wife for 13 years, the balance was going to be start at a point it feels good and stop at a point it starts to feel bad, and you're going to get into resentment, because I kind of feel like that's that line between it becoming resentment is where you become mom, and that's where you will start manifesting mom behaviors and mom entitlements, like, because I'm the one that right now you're a nagging mommy. So I feel that a lot of women override that feeling of overwhelm. And I think you did a video on the channel, Coach Yvonne, when you were saying, look, you went out shopping and you're always thinking, what would my husband want to eat? But on this occasion, you actually asked yourself, what would I want to eat? Right? At that point, you stopped being mommy and became his girlfriend, right? You became his woman because you were putting you first. And I think a lot of women don't do that. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, but I think
what I wanted to add is that we forget as women that our husbands or our long-term partners chose us for a reason. They didn't, see us, whether it was in a club, online, wherever it was they saw. When they saw, they didn't say, I want her because she looks like my mother. He chose you because there was something about you that he thought, she looks like she's got gumption, she's got get up and go, so she's going to be, good for me. So when he's now put a ring on it, or you've moved in together, surely then you should continue in that frame where everyone is basically staying in their lane. Because what then happens is children come in, you have sons, and sons grow up not knowing how to take care of themselves. If they go away to uni, for instance, then it comes as a total shock to them, because they've never had to do anything for themselves because their mother did everything for them. And then guess what? They marry somebody who they expect to do everything for them too. And then the cycle goes on and on and on. And then what eventually happens is that the woman ends up, as you said, being resentful. But then guess what? The man then realizes that, hold on a minute, this is not what I wanted, and then starts looking elsewhere. And then what do? So there's got to be a case of let everyone stay in there. Women, be masculine and serve. That's what the Bible says. The Bible tells us that we're to submit and be feminine. The man's job is to love his wife as his own body, and to, provide and take care of her, teach the children in the way they should go. Everyone's given a job to do, for want of a better word. So let's stay in our lanes and do that, and don't let our men become, have too much feminine energy, because that's not going to do either of them any good.
Not turn them into our sons. I love that. I actually think that we need to have a whole podcast on mothering and a whole podcast on disassociation. I think there's so much in there. And I actually, as we're talking, I know we'll probably do a whole series on the things to unlearn, because I just think that is such a powerful thing, and I think in order to keep this podcast short, we're going to have to come back with episode number 2 of, what to unlearn moving forward, because I was actually having this conversation with myself, Coach Yvonne, this morning, and I was really reflecting on this very thing of how I so easily mother men. I just roll into that role so naturally. It's ridiculous. I am ironing shirts, I'm making dinner, I'm doing all of these things, and it's so natural. I'm cooking, when I'm doing these dinners, and everything that I tell my girls not to do, I've always felt like, well, you can do it because you're all that in a bag of chips. You're Miss Mama Swan, and you don't get to play the game too. And I had to sort of deal with myself and say, okay, what is this mothering energy? And I realized that it's what was modeled for me. I don't have another model for how a man is treated. But we know that when we stay his girlfriend and stay sexy, that he's attraction for us. And I think I was talking to Coach Unique, and I'm not sure she's comfortable to share, but, you know, she was talking about, you know, your partner and how you've sort of shifted gears a little bit in your relationship, and how he's actually finding it almost interesting, but sexy. It's become like, oh, okay. This is different, but I like it. Right. You know, I feel like when we go into mothering, we actually rob him of his sex drive.
Yeah.
You know, we actually rob him of that passion. And I think wives becoming girlfriends again is really, you know, and for me, I don't think that you have to do everything. You can pay people to do it. I think it's important for there to be like this celebrity girl. I knew where she was coming from, and I knew what she was trying to say is just completely submitted, but I don't really believe what she was describing is submission. I think it was domestication and servitude and subservientness. And I think it's very different. Submission is really about deferring to his decisions. When we have had a conversation, I think it's about cooperating with his leadership. It's about leaning back when he needs to drive things forward. You know, cleaning his stuff and giving him his shirts and doing his packing is all very nice. But, you know, if you're a woman of means and you, as a couple, you have money, this is stuff that you pay other people to do so that you keep your sexy and you keep that girlfriend status in his life, and he can see that those things are done by mom and or the maid and or the help. Okay, now I understand that not everybody watching this is going to be able to afford the help, but there's nothing wrong with helping him pack rather than packing for him. Right. There's nothing wrong with inviting him to cook with you instead of always making sure that when he gets home, everything is set on the table. And there's nothing wrong with him being responsible to bring dinner tonight, because that's your job, and creating more of a team together than this idea that I must see to every single thing. And it translates into the bedroom too. You know, even you don't fancy him because you don't want to sleep with your son. You know, you're thinking, you're thinking you can't even, you know, contribute to the domestic life. So now I've got like a son. So I think that's really, really powerful.
Yeah. Can I add to that actually? Because I think as a generation, we are caught in between two worlds. We're caught in between, this is what we saw our mothers do, but this is what we want to do. So it's like, where I understand where she was coming from with the submission is like, that's what she saw modeled. That's what she termed as submission, because women didn't have to work back then. They were looked after. So now it's like, I'd like to be looked after, but it also comes at a cost.
Yes.
So that's where we say, then find a man that you know that you can be in that household position. Because we once had this conversation where we need to be okay with holding two thoughts at the same time. Yes, sometimes I want to be that woman. I love to cook. I want to be that woman. I want to be the woman who does your dishes for you, who does your ironing for you. But I don't want you to come to the point where every single moment when something is torn, you give it to me. Oh, fix this. You know, because you know that's kind of something I do. I want you to also respect the fact that, not that I think respect is the wrong word. I want you to also hold me in a sense of I can go out to work. I can contribute to the family setting, and I also want to give you the respect as my man that you will get things done. You will get things sorted. And I can contribute to that. So submission means a totally different thing to what it meant to our mothers. It's a whole new dynamic. So I think it's what we're saying now is, I guess I wouldn't say it's an unlearning as such. It's more of, let's learn to incorporate both ideas and be okay with it. So it's unlearning the need to have one over the other.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the real point is that, you know, I think we sadly, and this is something that I wanted to talk about, is we have been given a script for relationships that no longer works entirely as it has been handed down. Like everything else, if you get an old car handed down, it's not going to work the same way as a brand new vehicle out of the factory. But it doesn't mean it doesn't have its own charm. You know, I saw my dream Mercedes yesterday, and it's one of the really old ones. I think when we went car shopping the other day, that blue one, it's really super old. And I love classics and I love antiques and I love old things. But I still wanted to drive like a modern car. And I think that's what we're kind of dealing with right now. We have this beautiful kind of relationship models of nurturing, care and love and provision and masculine and feminine energy. And it's sexy and it's nice and it's yummy. But if we're going to be honest, many of us and my clients will say they never saw their parents canoodling or holding hands or kissing. And that tells me that there was very little sexual chemistry in that setup, right? So it was a beautiful looking car, but the engine was not firing on all cylinders, right? We were not able to really go at the speed from 0 to 60 because everybody was sort of stuck in the roles. And what I want to see more is this unlearning of how things ought to be in terms of the pattern that was handed down to kind of understanding feminine and masculine energy and knowing how to flow in it. Because feminine energy doesn't have to look like ironing, cleaning, whatever, but it can also look like ironing and cleaning. You know, I love when I am married, I am sad that my husband will be spoiled, but of course the ironing and the cleaning shall be done by my housekeeper. That's what's going to go down. But now and again, I love to cook for a man and see him enjoy the food that I've cooked. And I love to see him wear the clothes that I've chosen. And you know, I love caring. I love nurturing. It's also part of my feminine energy, but we want to get to that point where we have some sort of balance. And that's what I think you're saying, Coach Unique, about holding two thoughts. It's more about coming to a place of balance. And I think that special place of balance is when it stops feeling good. You know, as long as it makes me feel good, I'm still in feminine energy. As long as I'm doing it to serve a feeling within myself, I'm still in feminine energy. The moment I have to do it to keep the relationship going, I'm now in masculine energy. Now I'm doing it from a place of resentment. So where my start stops and your start begins, they're very different. You know, there are women who want to do that 24 hours a day, enjoy joy, pure joy, and their husbands love it like that. And the sexual chemistry is off the chain, right? And then there are women who, like ourselves, who work and are purpose chasers and dreamers.
Only want to do it on the weekend. Not Monday to Friday.
Exactly. And, you know, our model requires, you know, a different sort of guy and but as long as we honor the masculine feminine principle. But I think mothering is such an important conversation because we do it at dating stages, we do it at courtship levels, we do it, you know, and I think there is an element of mothering in a relationship. And as much as I believe there's an element of fathering in a relationship, you know, we really do swap our dads, because I've heard men say, you know, I don't want to be with a woman who was like my daughter. And I totally get that. They don't want a helpless damsel, but there's still the element of speak to me the way you would want your man to speak, your daughter's husband to speak to her, you know, cherish me the way you would if I was your daughter of 8 years old. Would you yell at me? Would you scream at me? Would you be so rough with me if I wasn't your 8-year-old daughter? Basically speak to me and deal with me as though you were talking to somebody who's so tender and so fragile. So I think in marriage, of course, the mother-father dimension still has to be there, but I think it needs to be in the right quotient. And in some relationship, it's not even there at all. You know, some women will not cook ever for their man, ever. You know, so of course, it's a broader conversation. And again, we can have that, you know, separately. And for me, I think in conclusion, I would want us to unlearn the idea that relationships should be easy. I think a lot of what we face in the academy with our clients and what I faced in the many, many years is this feeling that if it's not easy, what's going on? Like, what's happening to me? What is this crazy thing happening in my relationships? because of course, when our hormones are helping us out in the beginning, it feels so easy to communicate, so easy to talk, so easy to deal with our problems. I think and I think our parents did a great job at trying to paint very clear lines. And those clear lines were to make things easier. But relationships, and the goal is never to make a relationship easier. Is to make it better, to make it stronger. And with that comes a lot of uncomfortable conversations. And with that, yes, and a lot of uncomfortable situations. But there's so much resistance. Exactly. There's so much resistance to that because it's supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be intuitive. He's supposed to know. And when we have to have discomfort, we feel like there's something wrong with my relationship. No, your relationship is doing just fine. We just need to address this discomfort. And also sometimes it's not even conversations, it's positions. Sometimes you have to take that position that is very uncomfortable. So back to what Coach Yvonne was saying, if you've built a pattern and a dynamic in your relationship where you are his mommy, and now you've listened to this podcast or you know better and you're thinking, okay, I really need to roll it back. That new position is going to create difficulty because there's going to be elements of adjustment. He's not going to like it. He's not going to. So not only do you need to have difficult conversations, sometimes we have to take positions that are difficult, And what I would love for people to understand, girls don't want to go dating. We get that in the academy. They want to come and sit in the classroom, in the BSN, and listen and enjoy and have the ears tickled with all this girl chat, but they don't actually want to download that app. They don't actually want to go to that party. Why? Because it's not easy. And they'll only do it if it's easy. What's easy is to show up to the class. What's easy is to do the course. What's easy to do the workbook. But it's not easy sitting in front of a guy. If we can unlearn this idea that relationships must be easy, I reckon we will have amazing relationships. We will then begin to create. It's a little bit like I've started working out now and I go to the gym and I had to unlearn that working out needs to be easy. Like, honestly, I know it's crazy. I'm in my 40s and in my mind, it should be easy. I go to the gym for an easy ride or fun ride, right?
But and that's what we're taught, isn't it? Like life, if we don't, I think, because we always say, oh, you need to find peace with it. Then we associate peace with ease.
Yes.
It's like, no, it is actually hard. You will get peace, but you're going to do the work.
And peace often comes after war.
Yeah.
Yes.
Peace is often a product of conflict resolved, but conflict had to come first, right?
Yeah.
And we want to avoid the conflict piece and have the peace, but we don't have peace. And it's not about being conflict mongers, looking for trouble. Some of us love a bit of drama. It's like, yes, they said on the Black Swan Life, I can go create some drama. It's not that. And, I think the moment I had a mental shift and I realized, Chengi, lifting weights is supposed to be painful. You're supposed to have aching the next day. The muscle is supposed to burn. And if you don't have that discomfort and that dis-ease and that pain, you will not change your body. And just accepting the pain factor that it's not, I'm supposed to walk through that doors and not expect anything to be easy today. Everything is going to be hard. Makes my sessions so much easier, right? If we thought of dating and relationships as everything I'm going to engage with this person is going to be difficult because I'm engaging with somebody I don't know, who was raised different from me, who is a male, not female, who's different in their psychology, whose brain is different, whose priorities are different, and whose needs are different from mine. If we can have that approach that actually it's gonna be difficult, and difficult in this case is not a bad word. It's not a swear word, right? And I'm gonna have to, because that's the thing. The moment it's difficult, it becomes a swear word. Because for some reason, in every area of life, we should experience some resistance. But in relationships, there must be zero resistance. There must be this continual flow. And when we go in there thinking, yeah, I'm signing up for probably the biggest challenge of my life. But if I show up for it and I take the pain and have the difficulty and the discomfort, I'm going to have a marriage that is, or a relationship that everybody wants. If I take the discomfort in the gym, I'm going to have a body that everybody likes, right?
Yeah.
And I want us to approach dating, relationships, life with this sense, even business. You know, people quit when it gets hard. It's supposed to get hard. You're supposed to have seasons with no clients or customers. You're supposed to, go through those seasons. So that's definitely my kind of input on that, is learning this idea that relationships have to be easy. That way we'll stop jumping from relationship to relationship. We'll stop quitting on our relationships. We will stop being so deeply disappointed in our relationship. We will realize that actually this is it. This is it. Even salvation, it's only fun when you give your heart to Jesus for the first week or two. The rest of the time, you're thinking, what the hell? I have to be nice to this person and not deck them in the face. It's supposed to be difficult. And then eventually you look at yourself and you realize you're a mature Christian and you're actually a pleasure to be around. And you don't know when that happened, but you had to embrace suffering and difficulty and pain. And if we can unlearn these things, that will create a very solid foundation for relationships to be built. Anything you ladies want to add before we say our goodbyes, before we meet again on our next podcast? Fantastic. I had no idea what these ladies were going to bring today. I really had no idea, but we've definitely started a conversation that we must continue. Definitely let us know how you feel about this episode. Leave a comment. Let us know if you enjoyed this and anything that you would like us to get into. And until next time, take care of you and goodbye from us.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Black Swan Life podcast and joining myself and my guests here. And do not forget to go to the blackswanrelationshipacademy.com for any of your relationship needs, married or single. We're here for you to support you. My coaches and I will be happy to. And of course, follow us on YouTube, Black Swan Relationship Academy, Instagram, Facebook. You will find Black Swan Relationship Academy on all of your social handles. And we will love to continue this conversation. In the meantime, my darlings, do take care of you. Love you lots. Bye-bye now.